Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday session. Today's session is all about energy. Now, it's not my expertise. We were just waiting for Anna, and here she is. Sorry, Anna, you're going to have to join us straight in. We've only just started the live, but that's the whole beauty of lives. They're live. Can you just say something, Anna? So welcome, Anna. This is a farmer from Queensland. Can you just say something so that we know that your audio is all good?
Hi, everybody. How are we?
Excellent.
Very good.
We can carry on. So thank you for joining us, Anna. And this is Heinz Guger as well. Now then, before we go into this, I want to just do a little bit of clarity on what energy actually is, because there's several different ways of looking at it. There's different forms. And these I looked up this morning because, like I said, it's not my expertise. So we have kinetic, heat, light, chemical, elastic potential. I like this one. It's also known as strain energy. Gravitational potential. I like that one too. Electrical, magnetic, nuclear. Obviously, none of those really encompassed what we were going to talk about today, so I did a little bit more research, and this is what I came up with. I wanted to go a little bit more deeper into the energy, what we're feeling around us. So when I looked up divine, it came up with spiritual representations and forms based on gods and goddesses. So then I thought, well, I'll look up spiritual. And this is the invisible force flowing through us that connects us to God or spirit. It's often interpreted as the eternal essence of what we are, yet it's fundamentally separate from material reality. As living beings, we have entire energetic ecosystems, and I've highlighted that because obviously I really liked that. So I looked up energetic ecosystem, and interestingly, it went back to the literal form of ecosystem. So it was the energy flow from the sun to the plants, to the herbivores, and to the carnivores. I know Heinz, and obviously I do now because of Heinz's influence. I talk about the source energy, and this is the life force that flows through and connects all things. Everything that exists is a manifestation of this life energy. And again, I've highlighted that work because manifestation, Heinz will actually discuss quite a lot through the session. This source energy is not to be confused with energy sources, which are nuclear, fossil. So we've got coal and oil and natural gas, and then our alternate energies, wind, solar, geothermal, and hydropower. So still not happy. I went, okay, let's have a look at universal energy. It is the life force that exists everywhere. It is present in the universe between galaxies, molecules, and space. So it goes out to the wide galaxies and into the molecules and the little intricate spaces between everything. It is essential to maintain order in life and expand our consciousness. The basic character of universal energy is to fulfill our desires and make us happy. Now, I wasn't happy with that, make us happy, so I've converted it to make us whole, which I think is a better way of describing it. So welcome both of you to the Sunday session. Thank you for joining us. Maybe we could start with Heinz about just sort of going over what I've just spoken about and your understanding of energy and what you are doing in your life with the energy.
All right. Thank you. And good morning, everybody, too. You know how most people start off? It's almost you fall into it, because we had a big farm here in Queensland. And farmers are actually very, very intuitive already, just by nature, because they're out in the field. They're doing already. But as soon as you mention the word energy or spiritual to farmers, a lot of them get a little bit afraid, because they feel that's like this hippie community stuff. But everybody does it. Everybody has the feel, has the gut feeling. And farmers do that with cattle. I mean, they can look at cattle, they can feel or sense that something is not right or not working properly or working very well. And energy is all around us. I mean, we consider ourselves, we like the fish in the water. And we don't even know we have these energies around us, right? And our left brain always needs to have an answer for it. So we have to classify what is energy, but energy, you can't really put a name around it because it is already existed from the spiritual side. So a lot of the native tribes used energy and they're still using it, right? But now science started to put a name to the energy as well. So by the end, we're talking about the same thing. So when we look back at the guy who actually developed radionics around 100 years ago, he found out that anything and everything resonates at a certain energy device. So I don't say frequency or vibration because energy is all around us, but it has a vibration, and that vibration has a frequency, and through this we get resonance, right? So when we look, resonance is all around us. Now, if the resonance in an animal is balanced, then an animal is healthy. But if we have that resonance of it could be the eyes, could be the hoof, could be the liver, could be the spleen of an animal is not in balance, we can measure that. So we know that, and science confirms that now too. We are energetic beings. So we're running, what we see is just a chunk of meat around us, but everything has a vibration. So we're like a symphony with hundreds of instruments in us and around us, right? And all the symphony plays fantastic. It works very well, right? But if one of the instruments is out of tune, then something might happen. So you might see it, but that's in the soil the same, that's in a cat the same, it's in a snake, it's in a two-legged animal, four-legged animal, it's all exactly the same. So we're looking at the energetic side. We also know that before everything can manifest into a third dimension in us here, for example, manifesting an issue comes up in a cat, for example, it always has an energetic blueprint. So nothing just disappears out of nothing. So it has to travel, that energy has to travel through the energetic body into the physical. So with the tools we have now, we are able to measure these. We can check them, right? You can go as deep and as crazy. And even, when people say we have 90% or 95% is dark matter, it's not dark matter. It's information. It's energy there, right? That energy influences us all the time. We're influenced right now. There's energy coming in from the universe. They talk about the Lionsgate. They're talking about solar flares. It can affect us. It can affect the land. It can affect the plants. It can affect the animals too. We're aware of it. I don't go and study it too deep because for me it is I'm using this energy. I work with it, but I want to see results, right? So you can be a PhD and understand energy, but by the end, as a farmer, and that's what I learned on the farm too, it needs to work. If it doesn't work on the plants or on animals, I don't use it. It's useless, right? So I need to be able to work with that. And that's what we're doing here. We're able to analyze them, convert them, transmute them, change them. So then the outcome is actually visible on the land.
Fantastic introduction, Heinz. Thank you very much. And we'll just hear from Anna. Just how did you get started into the energy way? Did you contact Heinz or did you do something else, and then how did it escalate?
So I've always been fairly intuitive, more with animals. My husband's more the land intuit, and I'm more involved with the animals. We got involved in some other forms of subtle energy training a few years before we met Heinz. And then we were looking for a product, Demacious Earth, and Heinz was selling it. So we popped down to his place to buy it and disappeared down the rabbit hole with him. So Heinz has a very practical methodology for working with energy, which takes a lot of the fear factor out for people that aren't into energy itself. So there are tools, there are guidelines, there are techniques that have been documented, there are ways to measure it that's almost scientific. So you've got far more ability to test and see if something worked, even with nuance, than with normal dowsing just on its own or just sitting there and working with the energy of your land. So if you can test how effective a methodology you're going to use is, whether it's energetic or mainstream chemicals even, if you can test energetically how effective that will be, then you've got something to work with that's a little bit more methodical, science-based than just, putting it out there and hoping it works.
Yeah, okay. And so you needed the diatomaceous earth. Were you having issues, or was it for a specific thing?
Oh, we use it on our cattle. So we've got organic beef cattle, and we use it for fly control, and I put it in the garden for, various things. I give it to my horse to keep them warm. So we were just using it in a farming context.
So Anna, when did you go on to one of Heinz's courses, and if so, how did that? What did you learn from it?
So we started with his initial dowsing course. So we've used dowsing on the land for water divining for eons, right? That's just everyone accepts dowsing. The bushies that won't touch energy believe in a dowser. So that's always very interesting on its own. So we went and did a dowsing course and learned to refine that skill and use that skill. And that's how we test things before we apply things to our land or in a home or anything else, is we test it to see if it's beneficial or not, and various other bits and pieces that Heinz teaches. So his initial course is very practical about just learning how to dowse and how to start using it in your everyday life. Then we went and did advanced dowsing. I've done his house clearing course to help clear energies in houses. We've done radionics, and then I had to buy all his tools. And we've got 2 radionic machines, 3 now, because we've got one that we use full time, is just broadcasting to our farm. One that I use just if I need to do a quick thing. This morning, my dog didn't look very happy when I let her out. She got run over by a car. So about 12 months ago, she smashed her pelvis, and we brought her back, but she just looked a bit tweaky today. So I put a broadcast out just before I started this. That's why I was a couple of minutes late. And then I have another machine that I just use for more diagnostic work, I suppose, on the farm. It's got a lot more banks to play with.
Heinz, can we then go back to where people should start or need to start, like Anna? So she's obviously progressed, and every course that she went to, she went, okay, I need this extra thing, I need to do this extra bit. So how have you set everything up?
Originally, we started off on the farm, right? So the thing is, on the farm, we were a little bit on a hill. So but all the plants always got the exact same water, the same supplements and nutrition back then. And you could always see that one part of the farm just wasn't as strong and looked as healthy as the rest. And when we did soil tests, from the plants, and say, okay, we'll take one from the not as good looking to the one which were good looking, and maybe there's the nutrition deficiencies. There was no big difference on a soil test. So we looked at biology. We looked at biology. Maybe there's a different biology. We looked at the different soils. There wasn't something who came out and says, okay, that's the problem. We have to work on that. So by that time, I also met my mentor back then, Hugh Lovell, which passed away in the meantime. And he said also, look at energy and look at radionics. So we looked at energy. So what we found out is then we had energy on that area, and that could be very old energy. That could be, energy from the past. It could be even from the future. So we started working energetically to balance that area. And very quickly, the plants recovered, and suddenly everything looked the same. So that energy was in the soil or also outside the soil, resonating into that area, which reduced the vitality of the plants. So we started then, what else can we do? So we got on to, more clearing, and then we started clearing houses, the farm, and just by clearing itself, removing these energies which were blocked to actually, let the land come into full flourish and power. Just by using this, we've seen big results. So we started, and my neighbor came over and says, hey, what did you do? Can I do it as well? So we started doing just beginner rate courses where people can find energies, learn how to change them, transmute them. That was maybe 15 years ago we started doing these cleanings on the land, right? And you could see that, and everybody has it. You walk into a house and it just feels like this beautiful feeling you have, that energy is nice. And you can walk into a house and it just feels like almost creepy, right? Now, that could be spirit energies, that could be underground water, that could be whatever energy that is, old stuff, right? So, for example, we cleared a property in Queensland as well. And after the clearing, immediately the cattle went there. And the lady said, that's impossible because since 10 years, cattle never went to that area. Or they run around that area. They never want to go into them. So there's a lot of unseen energy there, which is not beneficial for the land, for the people, for the animals. So the idea of clearing this is removing these blockages, and that's very simple done. We came up with recipes now where we can very quickly, and everybody can do it. And the funny thing is, we have people from 80 years old down to 12 in one course. So everybody is able to do it. And some people use it for the land. Some people use it just for where would I plant the tree into my garden, right? Or just where do I put the bees? So we found out that when you have bees and you put bees on a certain energetic line, they do better than when you just put them milly-willy somewhere, and it's harmonizing it. So what happens when you start harmonizing this? The lower energy has to travel to higher energy. So just after clearings like this, people ask, why are we getting more moisture? So because we have an organization on the farm, we created the pattern, which is now nothing can block it, and a little bit more moisture comes in. And we found that out on our farm because our neighbor took track of it. And he said, as soon as we moved in and we started clearing, we get more moisture than the town had. And we left the farm 7 years ago, and he said, that moisture is all disappearing again. So because we created a pattern of organization, right? So there's nobody can interfere with the system. And from this, people came back and says, what else can I do? So we started doing an advanced course where we also go deeper into certain things. We learn how to find underground water. A lot of times when you have an issue, for example, a cow has an issue, we can fix on the issue. So it's almost like we can reduce that pain, we can reduce the issue. But sometimes that pain will come back. And a lot of people know about this. You get rid of it, but it comes back again. That pattern comes back. So we're teaching, or we're looking at finding point of origins. Where are these root causes? In the past, in the present. So we're working deeper, finding not just fixing the little pothole, we're actually fixing the whole system. So when we go deeper into this, you have then more tools to make better decisions for you, and that helps them to take it to the next level. So we have now people, even practitioners who do house clearings for people all over the world. They come back with some really funny stories. We clear businesses sometimes, and we cleared a dairy farm in Melbourne, and he calls up the next day and she says she left. And I was a little bit afraid his wife left. I was like, who left? And he said, no, one of the milkers finally left, because we're trying to get rid of her for a long time, but we couldn't. But after you cleared it, she left because she couldn't stand that energy anymore. And now we have better milk. The herd is actually healthier. So just by setting the environment into a coherence pattern, you get healthier, the animals get healthier, the plant gets healthier, and everybody can do it. So everybody can learn how to do that.
That's really interesting, because there is something to be said about low frequency energies are, I believe, and you can correct me, are bad. So we're talking about depression or cancer, or so those sorts of diseases, but also evil as well. It's all at a low frequency. So if you can change that energy and lift the vibrations or the frequency, then it has a better effect on those of us who are good and striving and trying to get to where we've got to do. And also it can lift depressed states up, and so clears that bad energy as well.
Every situation is different, right? So yeah, maybe Anna, she used it a lot also, and just recently we put a system out to find cattle again. So using tools like that.
Yeah, so we had some of our stud heifers got out of their paddock, and we had footprints going down the road so far, and then they just disappeared. And we rang all our neighbours, and we've got excellent neighbours. Nobody had them, but we're on fairly big places. So next muster, they would sort of come and get our cattle back if they'd gotten in. But they were stud heifers, and we just AI'd them. So I was a little anxious about their whereabouts, more than we would with just a normal commercial heifer, which sounds terrible. But so I'd been dowsing, and I sort of checked, and I couldn't try and work out where they were. And there's some tweaking you have to do with your language. Like, language is so important. So when I get into a point where I'm not getting results, I always ring up Heinz, and Heinz goes, "Did you ask where they are physically right now?" No, I didn't. And Heinz will explain how that energy works. And so when I did it right now, they were in the paddock at home. And I went, "Yeah, it's still not working, Heinz." And I went, "I will go check. I will just go check." We drove down, and they were in quite a small paddock because we'd been working on them with AI. They'd all come home. So they'd all gone off, done what they wanted to do, and then brought themselves home. So yeah, it's interesting, but a lot of it is in your language, because language is energy and information. So the information you put out there to ask for the answers or the responses you're wanting is so important. I've been doing this with Heinz for, 5 years now, Heinz. I still don't always remember to get the full story out there. I sometimes think even energy understands my mind, but nothing understands my mind. So I have to do what I say.
That is interesting, though, because I did speak, Rob Hetherington, that's been on here a couple of times onto the live Sunday session. He was saying, because I think that generation was taught with Hugh Lovell, and he goes, "Yeah, we've got all of the equipment." He goes, "It's in the cupboard under the sink," because it's to do with the intention, isn't it? It's the language and the specifics of that intention that you put out there.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, you probably don't need the instruments if you can sit and hold your focus for a long period of time. But having the instruments means you can go, like, now I'm doing this and something's working to help my dog. So yeah, all the tools are simply that's tools. The power comes from within us.
Heinz,
Yeah.
anything to add?
The thing is, there's a change away from the traditional system right now, right? Where people just believe everything they get told, right? Either the blue pill or the red pill, or put this on. So people trying to take the power back. But what they don't want to do sometimes is they don't want to take time to learn it. They just still want to push a button here and there. This, what we're working with, it is you have to do it yourself, right? You can't use ChatGPT. You just hand it over. You have to actually sit down and analyze and says, how does it really need to be, right? I don't like to be, I want this, but let's say on your farm, what are you expecting from your farm, right? And it's taking time to learn. So at the moment, everything goes pushing away, getting outside information, using the AI to get this information. But we go in the other way and says, you need to actually be clear what you're trying to achieve, right? And people know that, farmers know this, when they go onto when they go on a paddock and they're anxious, they're nervous, right? And they're in fear and they're in a rush and they want to move cattle. Where is the cattle when you go up there with that energetic field? The cattle are all the way at the paddock, all the way at the end, right? But if you come up already before you go up and you balance yourself and the farm, and you walk up there and you come with an intent of happiness, balance, and peace, the cattle stands at the gate and you can just open the gate and move. So this is the energy we're working with, and people need to do it themselves. The hard time is sometimes when you have to take your power back. And a few people are afraid to actually take your power back. They're almost like, I can't do that. Everybody can do it. So, and some people takes a bit longer, and some people takes a little bit quicker. By the end, you make your decisions for you and the farm, and you don't need to have an input. I mean, if I break my leg here, I'm not going to use a tool like this. I'll go to the hospital, right? But I can change that energetic around the environment, which I can change very quickly. When you get into it, you then can expand as far as you like. You can just do clearings on your farm, and just by clearing on the farm, you're setting a pattern up, and we can measure energy, on the courses, how you are. If you're afraid, your energy is very, very tight to you. And if you have a beautiful energy and you're harmonious, you have a father energy. And when, like attracts like, in which state would you like to be? This is things very easy done. So you don't need, long courses and PhDs. You just do it. Yeah.
We've got a great question from Shorty. I'll do this. I haven't done this before, I don't think. Do you find that your intentions can interfere with your dowsing answers?
Absolutely.
What do you do to take yourself out of the equation? Great question. Thanks, Shorty.
Yeah, I like to control things. So I definitely influence my dowsing a lot. So I have to get myself into, I guess it's a state of grace, and you just got to let it go, and you just say, take your ego out of it. So, deeply breathing, centering yourself. I find I douse better if I go outside and get my feet, take my shoes off, get my feet in the soil, and then douse. I find it's a lot better connection there. It's like I let go of my manic ego. I'm an ex-lawyer, so I have ego. And yeah, you have to take it out. So if I'm dowsing for somebody else, my dowsing is much better than when I'm dowsing for something for myself, particularly if it's something around where I've got a high emotional stake in wanting an outcome going in a certain direction.
Interesting. And Heinz?
Yeah. And we have quite a few groups now going, after the course. We all over the world, we have now groups to come together. So it is probably the hardest thing to douse for yourself, especially when you're emotionally attached, right? There's ways you can do it, but we can help. So sometimes, when you have a group, you ask somebody else to douse for you, right? You can then douse for them. It works very well on the land, but a lot of time the people make the mistake, they ask the wrong question. So they're asking probably 4 questions in one sentence, right? So the idea is to learn how to phrase the question properly. For example, a really bad question is this vitamin good for me, or is this vitamin good for the cattle, right? So you don't know for what, and you don't know when, and you don't know, is this a 2% yes or 100% yes? So when we go into that state, remember I showed that picture of the footy players on the course. When they go in a state, they only focus on playing footy, right, on their position. So when you're in that state and you have a chart in front of you and you ask a question which is correctly phrased, you basically observe from the outside in, and the answer will come through the chart. So if I'm asking, a good question, for example, would be, at this stage right now, how beneficial is magnesium for my overall health today? I mean, 100% is very beneficial, right? And the pendulum will go to 80. That means, all right, I think there's something there. But when it goes to 20, that means at this stage, it is not very beneficial. So you're taking that out of the equation when you actually have a chart and you do questions. And when we do chart dowsing, for example, when you have soil, and when you go down the list and you look at ammonium, boron, potassium, right? When you can just focus on this and somebody writes and you just douse, there's no interference, because you're just into that state. If you're out in the field and you want to know, 2, 3, 4, 5 liter molasses, you just ask that. You don't need to be especially attached to that. But when it's more onto health state for animals and soil, it's better to do a protocol where you basically have all the questions and you just douse them very, very quick, and somebody else writes.
Can we have a look at some photos, Heinz?
Yep. So we maybe start with the one on the dowsing, where we're outside. As Anna said, a lot of people remember dowsing as finding water, right? Now you can use it for finding water. You can use it for finding lost items. Lately, we have a lot of plumbers coming to us and electricians, and they want to learn how to actually find the pipe before they dig, or when they got a leak. So on the farm too, if you have a leak on one of the pipes, we can use these tools, for example, L-rods, to find where is the pipe first, and then find where is the leak. So this is all about intention, but also resonating with that, what you're looking for. So this is a little introduction course we did outside Rocky with farmers. They want to learn a little bit more about using tools like this. So we do a lot of outside exercises as well, so people get used to the different tools. It's not good for clearing when we lose the L-rods, but it's really good to find things, lost items, or point directions and depth and all that stuff. Yeah.
What I loved about it, Heinz, was we had to think of something really positive, and the person walked towards us, and when the rods crossed, that was where our energy was emanating out to. It was quite a far distance away from us. And then we had to think about something that was really negative and something that had upset us really badly. And the person walked almost straight up to us before the rods crossed over. our energy. And so when I was talking about the frequency being a low frequency, it's the same with how far out it's emitted as well. When you're thinking bad thoughts and you're angry and aggressive, your energy is really short and around you. Whereas if you are happy and you're putting all this positivity out there, the width is just amazing, like the radius around you. That's what really got me at the very, very beginning of the course. It was a great way to actually open it up, Heinz.
Yeah. And when like attracts like, and everybody, we human beings, we get good days and bad days. But if you're aware of it and you can change that, people feel it, they sense it. I mean, if you walk into it somewhere, you can feel that energetic field is very small or tight around them, or it's further out there, more inviting, more harmonious. And this is where people who are very sensitive feel that more often. And so you have to make sure you can protect yourself as well, because otherwise, if you let everything in, you're going to suffer with everything. So protection is also a big thing of that when you in a field like this, that you're not taking everybody's energy on, and that you can stay in your power. Yeah.
Anna, what was the first thing when you did the very first intro course that you can remember that was just really significant to you?
I think it's probably more the effects afterwards. At the time I started doing Heinz's course, I had just left my career in law and I was really, really burnt out, and I had a hair trigger into anger. It was just like, so I found that the more work I did just with the dowsing and learning about understanding my energy, it seemed to, without me working too hard on it intentionally, I became less likely to hair trigger off to anger. Like, I can still do it occasionally, don't get me wrong, but it became a lot more balanced. Everything it's balance. It's having everything flowing through you rather than hitting you and you responding to it. So mine was more those sorts of experiences rather than the actual outcomes, because as a young kid, I was always into, elemental fairy stories and magic and power, and then Harry Potter and all those sorts of things. So I've always had this deep knowing that I was a witch anyway. So this is just letting me bring it out in another form. Whereas Craig, my husband, was very much not exposed to anything like this. And he loved being able to find, we've got 25 kilometres of pipeline running through our property servicing water. So he loved that tool of being able to find exactly where his pipeline was and then where his leak was, because it was saving them hours of digging bad spots and not having water. So his was much more practical. Mine was more just in managing my energy, I suppose.
Yeah, fantastic. It's such a universal way of being able to deal with certain things, or using it as tools, or just, it's really difficult for me to hear people say, oh no, that's just a load of woohoo, or it doesn't exist, because it's a reflection of them in a way, because they need to just be able to open up and allow it to flow. And as soon as they recognize that, it's just almost like an observation, isn't it? If they're just closed and they're not observing how they're feeling or how it's being used, then of course they can't move forwards.
It's just the model of the world they live in. We choose the model of world we live in to a degree. Well, totally, but we can control it to a degree too. So I always say, I've got friends that tell me that, oh, that's all woohoo, and I'll go, you'll get there. And the more they come along and they go, how come your grass is green? Why are your cattle shiny and ours look not so shiny? And I just go, you don't do woohoo. It's not going to work for you, And then they start to listen and open up, and then they just slowly start to come on. So, yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, for us as farmers, I want to see proof, right? And so I stayed on the farm and I could see things change, right? And when we got into radionics, I can see that it had less pests and diseases, right? And I mean, just recently, Anna, you told me too, you cleared the cattle, you cleared, when they went to sale, and you guys got the highest price in the sale yard. I hear that from a lot of people who do that before they actually sell the cattle, that the cattle gets the highest price. I see it in Rocky, had it done down in Melbourne, and also in Northern Territory. The lady said, I got 50 cents more per bull. And that's quite a big income, because they're working with that energy.
But with that too, when we do it, I want everyone to win out of it. So not just us make money. I want my cattle to have a safe trip, to be comfortable, to be relaxed, to have a safe trip to their new home, to go to a good home, for the buyer to make money out of those cattle as well. So you put it in all the way through. It's not just about getting you something. You want to make sure that there's a flow through to everybody. That's how I look at it. Otherwise, to me, it just seems greedy to just go, we'll get money. Yeah, it's about setting up the energy so those cattle do well for their entire life until death day, because death day is not good for anybody. And hopefully that sort of puts out that energy that everybody enjoys them, and then you can put in that they come back and want to buy our cattle again next year. So
when I started this, I also put in over the entire farm like a biodynamic broadcaster, and you got a picture of that. That's that single pipe, right? And as a farmer too, I want to see results. So when we put that in, Hugh Global developed this. This is basically the second one. The original one was from Galen Hieronymus, which only had one outlet. And the problem with one outlet, Hugh observed that his crops are failing because the earth has a rhythm, so a daily rhythm. So we have a line polarity, which is on the soil, and we have a silica polarity. So in the morning, when the earth breathes out, we come from the line polarity into the silica polarity. So in the atmosphere, we have all photosynthesis going on, and at night we have nitrogenification going on. So that pipe represents that flow. And we put that in onto the farm first, and there were specific preps made for the bottom and the top. And this is almost looking to be a conductor for the whole field. It takes a little while, but what it does, it harmonizes the whole environment below and above soil. And when we did then soil test 2-3 years later, suddenly we found that soil test started to harmonize. So they, from different paddocks, which we, years ago, they were all over the place, they started to come together. So we could see the result that things get flower. But it also set up that then the cattle is more, we had more native birds come in, we had more bees come in, we had just a more harmonious system. Just with this system on the farm, you don't need to do anything, we left it alone. When Hugh Global passed away, we couldn't get him anymore. And then from this, we developed Ag Radionics instrument. And that's the other picture with the little black one. May I show? Yep. So we were always looking to go into the scalar system on the towers anyway. And we like to produce the pipes here. But then Hugh passed away and we were not able to do this. So I came up with this because we don't have a scalar device. So we basically have now, instead of having pipes on the field where you need to protect, and put fences around for cattle, we have now a scalar system at home where we represent, again, we got a line polarity and a silica polarity. So the two wells are represented on the left, and these are custom input made. And then it's just a freestanding device in your home. And then you can use that also to put in, for example, if you have an issue with weeds, you can put a weed QAC in it. Or let's say you have an issue with what we always have problems with bats and birds, the lorikeets during the day and the bats at night. So we were able to put an antidote in it so they don't come in during that period of time onto our paddocks doing harvest. And it almost represents when the old farmer had an issue with foxes. They shoot a fox and they hang the fox around the fence line and the foxes don't come in. So this is just a modern version of harmonizing, balancing the soil, but also using this to control inputs. Like it could be parasites, it could be weeds, it could be whatever that is. It's a very simple setup to just leave alone and just let it resonate onto the whole property. Now, it will affect everybody else. It will affect the people. And you'll see that when people come onto the paddock, they're also much more in tune. The whole energy is just a little bit smoother than it was more up and down before. It started to balance out. Yeah. So quite a lot of farmers all over the world use that system right now. But then they can also take this apart and also just use it as a radionics instrument. Yeah. And Anna has it now in for a little bit over a year too, or even longer. Oh, 4 or 5 years now, right?
Yep. Yeah, quite a long time now.
Yeah. So what is your experience then when you just have that just resonating onto the farm?
Over the first year, we probably didn't notice a lot. The second year, the biodiversity that just came back through our paddocks, so just the different herbages and forbs and things like that, the little birds, it just was a more harmonic property. The third year, we got some soil testing done, and the soils had balanced a lot. Like, we were on really lovely country here, but we had problems with locking up magnesium, and it's still an issue, but it's certainly improved. The resilience of the land is stronger. When it's dry, our country holds on a little bit better. The roots don't drop off on our grasses, even during the big droughts, because we've gone in and out of drought for the last 5 years. And now that it's raining, it's just all the water's going into our soil, and there's no runoff practically at all. So lucky we don't have large dams or anything like that we need to fill.
Yeah, I had one lady. She called me up when you said the dam, because they have one system in 3 years now too, and she called me up and she said, my husband is really not happy. I says, why not? He says, we had so much rain and everybody, the neighbors' dams are all full, and ours are not full yet, right? And so my husband is not happy because there's no water in the dam. He says, where do you think the water went? Right? I mean, she said, look, we always have a little bit more moisture than everybody else because you establish a system. We see that quite a bit, that people who work with that just have a little bit more, a little bit better protected. But and then she goes, yeah, that's true. See, that the soul is now holding on to water. But the first instinct was like, nah, it's not good because it didn't fill the dam, so it didn't have much runoff. And yeah, no, they're happy now. Yeah. So this is a really good system to get into for farmers. You can just set it up, leave it alone. And then if you like to take the next level, you can then go into radionics, where you actively work on the farm, on animals as well.
Yeah, the radionics allows you to tweak things more directly, whereas Ag Broadcaster is just a general consistent energy update, really, isn't it, Heinz?
Yeah. So the difference between radionics and dowsing is I use the dowsing to clear energy, stock energy, right? Could it be aboriginal sites? Could it be burial sites? Could it be massacre site? Could it be underground water? Could it be EMF and Wi-Fi or towers, whatever? We can clear that so that the environment is safe, So that's like, you're looking at the car, you go wash your car, everything is clean. And then radionics is now, we're tweaking on the car. We're now going and fixing what we're trying to achieve and to set the pattern in, or what is not harmonized yet. Yeah.
There's an area that I'm still a little bit confused about. When you talk about scalar, was it Mr. Scalar like Mr. Tesla, or is it just a measurement, a unit measurement?
Now, when you go, nobody talks about scalar much, right? Because they can't measure it. Maxwell was able to measure it, but just not measure it. He had a formula, but nobody was able to see it. They can see electromagnetic fields. They can measure that, right? But scalar eliminates electromagnetic field. It clears them out. Scalar is the information, right? So there are books written, but they're not very public. So that's the new future of energy, is all in scalar, where it's information based. So I look at the scalar, it's everywhere. It can go open, it's faster than the speed of light, but it has information. So we're working with that information. We can tweak that information. And Tesla was on that. He created a scalar field. Again, all this stuff never comes to the day of light, but there were books written just by working on scalar on health, and that can reset systems. What should I say without getting too deep into the water? There's other energies out there which do not like to come that to light. A picture of maybe the radionics instrument, the bigger one, then you can see this is also a scalar device. Now, I always say, okay, see at the front there at the bottom, it's a scalar device, right? So this is original Tesla bifilar coil. This is the antenna which we use to send this information pattern. When I did this on the farm, did I 100% understand how this all works? No, but I was able to keep the lorikeets out of the paddock. And at night, I had no bats, right? I don't care how it works. It worked. And I'm not harming anybody. It's for the benefit of all and detriment of none. So I'm not harming anybody. And it works. I mean, I had a guy in Argentina. He is a big grower. And he grows salad. And he had problems with wild pigs. So he calls me up and says, hey, I need help. Can you work on something? So I started working on his farm to move the pigs outside his farm so they don't come in. 2 days later, he calls me back and says, I don't know what you did, but keep going. We might have one here and one there, but at least we have a safe crop. It works. And there's probably people out there who understand that better than I do. But for me, it is important that we have results on the farm. We had that with the bats and the birds. We use it now for weed control. We just came back from Europe, and the guy in Holland used that to control rabbits on his onions. We had another lady that she had issues with crows on the corn, because the crows come in and they just pull out the corn and they eat the seed corn. We set this up, we broadcasted that, and both of them said during the course, it says they disappeared. So it's not that we're going to kill the animals. We just set up a system, a pattern where they're not welcomed for that period of time. And then after that, when everything grows, we leave it open again. Yeah.
And that's really important, isn't it? Because that's about the balance. You can't just say you never want to go on this, the ecosystem. You need to open it back up again so that they can all live in harmony.
Yeah.
Anna, what have you found with the radionics? I think you've got something to do with the ticks and the buffalo flies.
Yeah, so we Central Queensland, ticks and buffalo flies are just a part of life. And they're really, really annoying. You know, anything that comes out chemically works for a little while and then it stops being as effective. And we're organic, managed here, and regenerative, so we don't want to use a lot of chemicals anyway. So I was looking at my cattle one day, and some of the cattle were just hammered by flies, and some hardly had a fly on them. And I was looking at, well, I wonder what that is. That's got to be an energy. Each animal's exuding an energy that's attracting or repelling. So I started setting intentions. So with that machine that Heinz just had up there before, you know, you can put into the information well your intention, what you're wanting as an outcome. And I set up an intention where, first of all, I went at the fly, and I don't like saying, you know, that they all drop dead or anything like that. So I reduced their fertility, and it'll sort of allow a cycle to mitigate the problem, right? You don't just try and blow it out straight away. That's just me. So I first worked on the fly that, one, they weren't really attracted to our place. 2, any that came on had reduced fertility so that they couldn't lay eggs and produce. That any larvae or whatever wasn't going to be very strong and didn't survive extremely well. And then I looked at the cattle, and I was trying to transfer through an intention whatever the natural resilience was in some animals into the animals that were not showing that level of resilience to the fly. And I found that worked really well. And a lot of people that were just working on purely trying to get rid of the fly said it started and it stopped, and then they'd have to go back and do it again. Whereas I just put this on a gentle broadcast on one of Heinz's broadcasting boards and just let that go. And when the fly stopped down, I'd just stop it. And then when you'd see it come up again, I'd just set my board up again and off she'd go. So it was a very soft, I suppose, approach. But I think the success we had was from taking the natural resilience of some animals and broadcasting that energy to the remaining animals.
That's a great idea. I love it. We'll just have a look at one of the boards that you're talking about, the Quantum Broadcaster.
Yeah, so we developed that out of radionics because there's a few people who do not want to take the time to learn radionics, or don't want to have the investment or come to a course. So this is more a manifestation board, and the book basically states how to set up one of these and how to use it. And you can manifest or broadcast almost everything. So we have people, we had one guy particularly, he did this on his shed because he said the pigeons always shit on his tractor on the tool. So he said, I don't I want to stop this. So we need a witness. A witness is, so he took the picture of the shed. Then important is to write an intent. And this is then your energy handwritten. And you don't need to do big stories. You just write an intent. So he wrote that the tractor and the tools are clean. Then he set a few things onto the little spheres and used the Tesla coil up on the top. That's what we then use in radionics. That creates the scalar field. And he broadcasted this. So 2 days later, he went back in and he said that the tractor was clean, the tools were clean, but they were all huddling in one corner, the pigeons, and they were shaking, he said. So because he didn't tell them to leave the shed, right? We had another guy, he had, they had this in Bowen, big property there, and he had rats always on his area. In the garden, he says, okay, no more rats, you can go anywhere else, but in my there's no more rats, right? So he said the dog sometimes brings a rat in, but that worked really well in 3 days. Then he went out to the dozer and he said, guess where the rats were, right? Because the dozer wasn't part of that picture there. So we can use that. We have people that they get rid of cane toads just using a reverse system we have in the book. People they set it up for health of cattle, for travel, or new job. So there's so many different things you can do, but you need to do it yourself. If somebody else does it for you, it won't work as strong than when you do it from yourself. So yesterday I had a call from a German guy grow hop, for beer brewing. And they had fusarium problems. And he said he made a system up, what he learned at the course, he put it out, and the grower called back and says that the plants in 2 days changed and there's no more fusarium in it. He used then the radionics system, right? Maybe go back to the radionics and I can explain a little bit how that works, for example. Yeah, so you can see there's 6 dials, right? So on top, there's 2 dials, right, left. So they create almost like a radio station if you tune it in. So the middle one, you can put in, for example, we started with fruit fly too. An issue on the persimmons was always fruit fly. So I can put fruit fly in and I can measure, let's say, their radio station. When the radio station, like on the old radios, is quite clear, then, they have a good resonance. So a lot of times I want to increase resonance, right? So when I measure soil, I put in soil and I measure then the different ammonium, the boron. I want resonance. I want that in a harmony. But for fruit fly, I want to get dissonance. So I want to reduce their vitality. What we started to do, we set up a pattern where it disturbs their energetic field. So for 2-3 days, the flies were gone when Angela checked the traps, and then they came back. So we had to reset it again. So very similar to what Anna did. You have to reset it again, and then, every 2-3 days, because the flies, when you have their radio stations, they're just going to switch their stations. They go above or below. Over 3 years, we had less and less and less and less. So it's not like an overnight thing, especially flies. They reduce a little bit at the time, but it takes a little bit. So next year, when Anna does the same, she's going to have less and a little bit less again. And we also use it we had issues with weeds. Just recently, we had giant rat's tail grasses, which we started to work on with really good results, and also false armyworms, because there's nothing which works on false armyworms chemically. A few farmers use that system. They use these instruments to set up, we call it a broadcast, like a resonance onto the paddocks, and 2 days later, the false armyworms were gone. And the neighbor next to it lost 50%. I want to see results that it works. And that process needs to be for the benefit of all and detriment of none. So we're not harming anybody, but we're helping the land, we're helping the people, we're helping the animals. So on the next slide, there's a little chart. When I was talking radio stations, this is, for example, a sheet we use for analyzing soil. So we put a little bit of soil in from, could be the whole house paddock or could be the whole farm. And then the number, for example, system number ammonia is 2232. So that is the radio station for a DNA blueprint ammonia. We can put that in and get a reading. And then we can go down and borium, calcium, chlorophyll, and all this. So, for example, we're coming up that zinc is low. We can take that radio station and broadcast that back onto that land. and enhance the zinc again. So I used also a lot of special vials up, QSU I call them, they're little coats, they're pre-programmed for example, for frost protection, we can do that. So where I use some biodynamic preparations, we can also use it for hail. So a lot of people in Stanthorpe using this and have really good results to eliminate hail on their property. So you're integrating radio stations which are preset, but you can also add in your own inputs as well. You create your own cake for whatever you try to achieve here. Yeah.
And Anna, you've had some luck with the ticks as well. Did you use the same process like you did with the buffalo fly?
Yeah, basically, yeah. We also, with the ticks, because you can actually get the tick, buffalo flies are really hard to catch. So with the ticks, we were able to put them into the machine and get an actual specific reading for those ticks on our land. So our tick methods were probably more accurate because we were actually able to target ticks from all of our herds. We got ticks from all of them and put them in, and we're able to get their frequency and then reverse it.
So would your machine look a little bit similar to that?
So the one I used for the ticks was the machine you had up before, the bigger one, the Beacon.
Okay.
Yep, but that one we just use for the day-to-day. Heinz sets up the QACs, the vials that are in that machine, and sends them to us. He analyzes what our farm needs for the next 12 months or so and sends that to us. And then every now and then we might put in something like to dry out the land if we get too much water, those sorts of things using that machine. But when I'm doing the other broadcasting, it's with the Beacon.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got both.
Yeah, sorry. We just had a grower who called me back a few weeks ago. He said he was looking to increase his sugar content on sugarcane. So he had the smaller one, right? So I sent him the Biodynamic Preparations 501. So we have all the biodynamic preparations. They also have a radio station, right? Or we also made vials up. You can see the vials on the left side. These vials, they're imprinted in silica crystals. So he had a 501 and he broadcasted that to his sugarcane. He told me that when the mill got it, he was 2% higher than everybody else. So he had the higher sugar content in his cane. So before harvest, we were able to increase his sugar content. When, for example, if you have rain and you can't get out onto the paddock, onto the land, we can broadcast biodynamic preparations to dry off the land. We can broadcast 505 and 508 at the same time. A nice thing is we can integrate all this. You still have to go out and pick and harvest and move the cattle and brand the cattle. It's not just the magic bullet you sit at home, but you can make it easier and you can help yourself on the land to make this in more harmonious, but then eventually will lead that your input's going to be less because you're using what's already there and you can analyze that much quicker. We had a guy, he fed grain to the cattle, and every month the truck came and dumped the grain, and he said, okay, hold on a second, I actually going to put my own recipe together now for the cattle who needs them. He comes back 6 months later and says the cattle look better, and I saved $20,000. The idea is to analyze that for yourself to make sure what is needed at this stage for the farm. Yeah, but Anna had a really good example on a dog as well, which ran into a car. It was 6 months ago, right?
12 months ago, actually, or just over. Yep. She got cleaned up. We live quite close to our road, and she's an idiot cattle dog, and she ran out under the neighbour's car as he was beetling down the road. And we grabbed her and we raced her down to our vet in Monto, who's a fantastic vet. Got her x-rayed, and I said to the vet, is it kinder to put her down? She'd smashed her pelvis in 5 places. It was really nasty. And she said, look, if she gets through the night and we can control the internal bleeding, we've got a chance. So we left her there and I raced home, and with Heinz on the phone guiding me through how to do it because I didn't have time to learn on this one, I set up a broadcast, and the next morning she couldn't believe it. The internal bleeding had just stopped. So they brought her home, and we still had to lock her up in a cage where she was not allowed to move for 3 months and bring her in and out. But I just kept dowsing, looking at what she needed, supplements. At the moment, what I'm broadcasting to her now is one of the drugs she had for pain because she just looked like she was in a bit of pain. she got the fourth leg and it's working, but it's a bit of a wonky donkey. But she's a healthy, happy, generally pain-free cattle that does a 5K run with me every day. So yeah, it was an amazing turnaround. And to the point, the vets, I told the vet what I was doing because she's pretty cool. And she's actually said to other people, you know, you need to try this because there is no scientific answer for how that dog stopped her internal bleeding.
What a fabulous story. I think we will wrap it up there unless anybody's got anything else. Any questions from anybody? It's something that can't be explained, but it doesn't mean to say that it doesn't exist or it's not extremely powerful. It's quite incredible when you start to listen and observe and experience this. And I just thank Heinz and Anna for the first time. I haven't met Anna before, but these people come into my life for a reason.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.
Okay. No questions from anybody. Is everybody, Anna, you're all good to wrap up?
Yep.
Heinz, pleasure. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming, especially giving up your Sunday
Thanks for
morning.
having us.
Yep, thank you.
Everybody's good. Okay, we will say goodbye then. What I will say though, as long as once Heinz has actually given me the thumbs up for the video, there will be a video where he speaks about the dowsing and the radionics a little bit more. Okay, so that will be available. All right, thank you everybody. Sorry about my internet connection.